Welcome. Just a short little exercise here, continuing along with ghPython and Grasshopper. As I go through the list samples in Book 3, Chapter 2, or Chapter 2, Book 3, I'm writing some scripts, and you can see initially as you write scripts, you might be somewhat repetitive. And the reason I'm being repetitive in the scripts is to really break down what it's like to work with, let's say, two lists instead of one list. So using the same thing I was using last time, I basically just did it twice, and I like that the same slider operates, and this will function. I'm going to take this off for now, erase the object, and show that that object is only generated when it's both solved. And what's nice is that object solves a center cage and an outer cage when both the number and its square. And you can see this weird dimpling and this strange effects of having circles that maybe are reparametized or not, or subdivision doing some solutions as things flip around on closed objects. So there's a lot of little mathematical things that, even though the script is fairly simple and you're dealing with a couple of lists of items, I think 25 numbers, checking if they're both 3 and the square appear in it. And if they do, that pushes it through and creates that cage. And I've got a quick little true gate on here. For some reason, the plugin I had for bake bake object instant, is not working with that geometry to come out and put this bake on here. And I'm just going to take this one off. I'm just going to stream gate this one. Actually, I'm going to copy this little one down here so the bake is on true, and I'm going to take this one to false. So that one should disappear, but this bake isn't working. I'm not sure why. That tool's not working right now, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to leave this one on true, so whenever it does solve, I end up getting that shape. So these scripts are available online to play with, and this is quite literally just my sandbox. So let's just go through again and see if we can't. There's another one that hit, and because the numbers are different in the dividing, what were my numbers? 4 and 16. It's interesting how the divide didn't pick up those geometries. So it's kind of random, and there's another one being generated. The subdivision mesh is pretty interesting. You can see that one. But nice little scripts for generating geometries. They're fairly complex. And of course, I can always go in here and adjust the width of those things as well as I pull them down, except the problem is that's processing a lot as it's going through the subdivision, so the script's slowing down a bit. But you still have these models that I'm just going to call this one cage and cage as I keep going. And basically, I'm just going through learning lists and list methods and trying to grab these, which are starting very simple with Michael append to list. And actually, you can see that I have my script here written wrong. Append is addend, which is not a word. So you start to catch your little errors in your sandbox, and you get better at coding, you get better at debugging and fixing things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in here and go up to Insert, and Insert's going to allow me a whole other way of visualizing what can happen in a script. So I'm insetting a name to a list of names, it's strings, but I'm going to bring that down here again by just cutting and copying this, bringing it into my playground right here. I'll give it a title after I make something, because working parametrically usually allows you a lot of freedom. So it's not going to be called cage and cage. I'm waiting to get to this one because I'll use it in a minute. But let's jump in here, and obviously we don't need this one on anymore. Let's take a look at that inserting list script, which is very easy, but start thinking of it as numbers and integers to begin with that can start to be iterative for ranges, making your own number lists, and you'll see the power of thinking very basically to drive geometries. And yes, your scripts stay fairly compact. They're using really basic division and curve and circle nodes, and maybe the subdivision algorithm in the end to make it a geometry worth looking at. I didn't do that one in this one up above here. I was baking geometries that were actually objects that were oriented over onto a grid work. So if you have this kind of basic knowledge of Grasshopper and what to do, but you'd like to jazz things up with Python, then I think this is really the way to do it. Grab the base scripts with the methods and start to apply them. And of course, I'm just staying on lifts, the start, tuples, and sets are I'm not going to use too much, but I will get into dictionaries. I'll get into writing my own functions, which is kind of what's happening here, getting in the classes and all all the magic of classes and error handling, and then start pulling the modules that are going to make this move towards what my goal is: data science, artificial intelligence, and algorithms, basically machine learning, and how I can start to build more interesting visuals than what basically is coming out of data science as an artist and thinking creatively. But I do like these models with that algorithm tool just because I'm driving that by a little bit of an understanding of writing in Python, as you can see here. Having an understanding of Python, keeping it simple, you'll slowly want to make this iterative so you're not being repetitive in your code. You'll want to write functions so you don't have to retype these things, and you'll get better and better and better as your mind wraps around into this. So I hope this series, people are really getting encouraged to jump into Python and possibly over to C# to start handling what you would use it for in Grasshopper outside of making plugins and making things off the shelf for people to use. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Michael Wickerson at Wickerson Studios.